make it alone. My heartbeat is drumming, but my head's in the zone. Now hearts may be broken, and tears they may fall, but after decades of hoping, it's nice to be here at all. They didn't see us coming, but we can make it alone. Let's just believe until we have to go home.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Euro Breakfast after a couple of days off. Refreshed, recharged, and we've got football back. And I've missed it like hell the last couple of days, so thank Christ it's back. I am delighted to be joined again by, I'll start off down there, man that you'll recognise previously from his his vague Italian connections that I've been making the most of. Mr. Sai Maggio, how are you?
Buongiorno, come stai?
He's got the lingo.
Italian, yeah.
And on that side, no point that way. On your right, as you're looking at it, 1885 Ben, welcome in, my friend. How are you?
Although I can't really say that I've got any other languages to my nature, but that's the Scottish.
Speaks hello. But no, delighted to get Ben on because obviously couldn't make the last time, so it's great to have you in, mate. And we've got a couple of cracking games to preview here. So, first round of 16, fixtures up. I've actually got a funny feeling this is probably going to be the best day of football we're going to get in this round of 16. We'll start off with Wales-Denmark and bold prediction time. I think the winner of this goes all the way to the semis at least. So, what are we thinking?
I mean, it certainly could be. Wales have been quite good in the last couple of tournaments they've been in, quite surprisingly, because I know they've got good talisman and the likes of Bale and Ramsey. But aside from that, like, you'd look at a squad like, obviously, we've got close links to Scotland and stuff, and you look at the two squads and you want to kind of aspire to be like Wales, qualifying for the latter stages of tournaments. And as I said, aside from Bale and Ramsey, I think their squad sort of matches up to us in terms of overall quality. But it certainly helps them that they've got those two world-class players in their squad, and they're certainly doing very well, and they've got a chance to go through to the next round, definitely. But I kind of agree with you as well. I think it might be the best day of football because you've got Italy playing as well, who have been playing fantastic.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll get there, Si, because I'm sure you'll have your input. But in terms of Wales-Denmark, I genuinely think this one could go either way. How do you see it going?
Yeah, it's got to be a tough tie. Like Denmark they just got the one win in the group stages, and that was enough to stick them through because that got them a second place. They went through second place, right? That was how.
Yeah,
I think only on 3 points because they lost the other two games, and that win, is that going to change their fortunes? You know, they were very unlucky. Of course, we all know what happened in the first match of the tournament. And that player is going to, Eriksson is going to be a big miss for them. You know, he's a very key player in that Denmark side. So I wonder if they've got the depth, or if they're just going to go through on some kind of, team unity that's brought them together, and how far can that take them? And saying that, I don't think Wales, Wales is the kind of team that will all group together nicely. You can see how well Ramsey and Bale like playing together when they're playing. And it doesn't. I just seen what Mal said. It doesn't. It doesn't. I don't let any Welsh people see this. I like Wales. I think Ramsey and Bale play well together, and they've got some nice players in other positions. You know, Roberts plays for Swansea, of course. There's a couple of players who float in and around various parts of the English leagues. So I think Wales could edge this. It's a game Wales could win, but you just got to worry about how fired up that Denmark team is after a win as well. You know, you can imagine they were a bit down after that first loss, or those first two losses, and what happened. To just turn it around could be big.
Yeah, Obviously, we need to put it in context because he beat Russia, who have at times looked like the worst team in this tournament. But like just the wave of emotion they were carrying, and you could see how much it meant to the players and the fans. It's probably the best atmosphere we've seen so far in any Euros game, I would say. Damsgaard is looking like he's about to break through as Eriksen's replacement, and he was unbelievable against Russia, just absolutely inspired. So hopefully for their sake he keeps doing that, because I genuinely don't think they'll miss Christian too much if he keeps playing at that level. Denmark's got previous for this as well, being outsiders and being unfancied and kind of being overlooked. Suddenly they're winning the tournament, and we'll see if they can go on another run. But that Wales have also got previous for going on a run, as you say, with like assuming Bale and Ramsey stay fit. Kiefer Moores looks really good, I think, up front, big target man. Even in defence, Joe Rodons looks really solid. There's decent players all the way through that team. So I genuinely can't call it. I'm sitting the fence and it might well go to extra time. One of those, but I just hope there's goals in it and I hope it's as exciting as it could be. But let's go early predictions in. Ben, who do you see going through?
I fancy Wales, just to edge it. I think the quality of Alexa, Bale and Ramsey might just see them through. Obviously, there is some decent enough names, as you mentioned, in the Denmark side, but I just think Wales have got that slight edge over it. Denmark weren't a great quality side in the group stage. They got through eventually, obviously, with their kind of more team unity, I think, than anything else. And whilst Wales do have that, I just think they've got better quality players overall.
And Si?
I think this is probably the hardest game to call. I'm looking down the list of matches. I think this one could go either way. I'm going to go with Wales, but maybe that's. I'd like to see Wales go through. But then again, the Wales players have been saying, everyone's going to be supporting Denmark in this match. So because they're tournament underdogs, and because of what happened early on, it's just going to want everyone to do well, because that's like the movie story. The one that gets made into a movie in 10 years. So I don't know. Wales, I think Wales will go through. I'm not sure they get to the semis though. I think Netherlands could be too big for them. Netherlands haven't looked bad.
That's a fair point. Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, right? Let's not get too far ahead in the old predictions game. But that brings us nicely on to Italy-Austria, which again, I think there's a clear favourite in this one, but I wouldn't discount Austria. They've looked good at points in this tournament so far, and still get like class. David Alaba is an absolute class player, obviously, and he's played really well, actually. But I can't see past the Italians. So I'll come to yourself first, Si.
Yeah, I think Italy should win this based on how they've performed. You can't imagine Austria would be too dissimilar to some of the teams they've already faced. Switzerland in particular, probably about the same level of quality. A couple of star players, a couple of, but across the team, it's fairly decent, but it's nothing outstanding. Yeah. And I feel like that Italy team is just going to play well against that kind of team if they can break them down. It'd be interesting to see how Austria line up. Austria, they played against North Macedonia. They got the win, but I think the scoreline perhaps, and that could be credit to North Macedonia. We saw how much North Macedonia fought, and perhaps they went out before the third round. But I think I don't know if Austria got enough to see off Italy. Italy should go through there, and that's going to be a tough. Maybe they even choose to rest some players. Chiellini is probably out, although I think he played the last game, so I don't know if he's got a new injury or if it's just a case of coming back. I wonder if they've got some selection issues as well. So they obviously been playing Locatelli, he scored twice. I mean, this is what I said to you last time I was on. It was just before that second game, and then he went on and scored twice in that game, or a goal and assist. And then they've got Verratti back fit. So do they take Verratti? Do they take Locatelli? Do they move someone else out of the midfield, or Berardi out of the midfield, or what do they do? It's tricky.
It's a tough one because Verratti is Locatelli's position, but you can't really drop Locatelli with the way he's playing, I don't think. So I guess he would maybe need to mess about with the shape if they're going to play both of them together. I'm happy I'm not making a decision, put it that way. But it's a nice problem to have, I suppose, for Mancini. He's got everything right so far, so we'll see which way he goes on that. But how about yourself, Ben? How do you see this one going?
I mean, it's that classic thing where the Italian defences are coming on top, really, because they've not conceded a goal yet. Is that right?
That's
so,
right.
I mean, if they're not conceding goals, they're not going to lose football matches, are they? So, and they're scoring enough as well. So, I mean, I think we've all said that you can't really look past them in this game. I can't really think, aside from Alaba, a real standout player for Austria. And I can think of many Italian players, and I just think that, like what I said with Wales, I just think that having those extra quality players will edge them over this. And I think, obviously, Italy have come into this tournament and sort of maybe taken a couple of people by surprise. Obviously, they've got the good players, but you were looking at teams like Germany and maybe Portugal and France definitely as being the sort of favourites to go on and win the tournament. But with how Italy are performing, and as I said, if they're not conceding, they're not going to lose, and they're scoring enough at the other end. So I can only see one winner in this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if Italy go extremely far in this tournament and maybe even have a small chance of winning it as well.
Well, don't go full Daniel Sturridge on us and call them the dark horses, even though they're clearly the favourites at this point. But yeah,
they've got Belgium, Portugal next, which can't be one of those two teams. So that's going to be the real test for Italy. I don't feel like they've faced a top team yet. You know, they could have been in that Group F, or they could have been in one of the other tough groups. But no, they.
I wouldn't discount Austria either, because even though like they've not got, say, other than Alaba, like massive star power in there, as a unit they're very, very solid. They still got guys like Sabitzer as well who are top quality, so I can't see past them. They're the most un-Italian Italian team in the world, in that they're still brilliant in defence, but they score for fun. You know, it's not the old, as I would say, the Catenaccio ways of get one goal ahead, 2 goals ahead, and that'll do us. You know, there was a stat in this tournament before the group stage that I don't think an Italian team had won by 3 goals in any group game. Might even go to any knockout game. And Mancini's just gone, nah, I'm having away with that. so
that's England's job now, win by 1
that is
goal.
England's job now. The boring Catenaccio has moved on. But yeah, like, now that we've kind of... I'm assuming the predictions are going to be Italy all round. What are we saying?
Italy by about 2 or 3 goals, I think.
But Si made an interesting point there, because the winner of this facing Belgium or Portugal probably is the big quarter-final tie that we're looking at there. I mean, like, we won't look too far ahead into those games in depth until the days, but I reckon Belgium probably in that one, just as a kind of finger in the air, given that Portugal's defence is dodgy, I think, at best.
I mean, it's certainly one of the ties of the round of 16.
Yeah.
And along with the likes of England and Germany, and I think that's the 2 main ties, albeit I think this is going to probably be the best day of football that we're going to see today. But certainly when those ties were drawn, they were the big ones.
I mean, if you're Italy, there's no real preference there, is there, between the two? I think you just take what you get if you get past Austria, and you need to beat them at some point, as the cliche goes, right?
The defence is weakest in both those teams, Belgium and Portugal.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the attacking lineup they both have, and you might be a bit worried. You're looking at Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo, Bernardo Silva, Jota in Portugal. But then you look back and they've still got Pepe in defence at 38 or wherever he is now. Then again, they got Bonucci and Chiellini, so they can't. It's not like it's much different than the Italy team. But yeah, actually, you know, the pace of someone like a Lukaku could cause those old defenders a problem. So maybe it's better that Chiellini's out and they've had to bring in a Cherby. Although
Cherby's not known for his pace himself, right enough, is he?
So, I mean, is that a chance for one of the other centre backs to come in? I don't know, perhaps. It's not. It's going to be interesting to see whether that becomes, because the teams that faced Italy so far, they haven't been known for their world-class forwards. So you come up against a Ronaldo or a Lukaku or a Jota. You know, Jota's pretty quick. So some of these players could cause some problems for Italy if they try to push on too much. Balls over the top to these quality players could unpick them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they change tact a little bit when they play a bigger side. Assuming they get past Austria, that is. Like, we'll see if they basically drop Jorginho into being more of an anchor man rather than a playmaker role. But again, he might drop out if they bring Verratti in, is the other way they could do things. I don't think they will, because he's been very, very good the first 3 games, but the first 2 games that he played. But in terms of the tournament as a whole, now that we know everyone who's in it to win it, have we got any fancies other than Italy? Because I know they're everyone's pick at the minute.
Well, I think you still can't really look past the kind of, I suppose, big 3 in terms of France, Belgium or Portugal potentially. Netherlands might be another wee shout in there just because they've been playing relatively well. But I think, like we mentioned just there, like, because it's now getting into the crunch time of the tournament, you can kind of get caught in a bit of a rut with the group stages where some teams play just lesser opposition and they can look great. And then when it gets to the knockout stages, of course, that's when the better teams come into it and you can get put into a one-off tie against one of the better sides and they just come out on top because you've not played that quality opposition yet. So, I think I had France to win it, so I'm still going to stick with that. I know it's a very boring kind of prediction, it's nothing too fancy. But I think that their squad is set for a win in this tournament. Don't think they've got many weaknesses. Obviously, defence is kind of an area that every team will have some form of weakness in somewhere. But I just think the overall quality in that squad and the fact that they've been there and kind of done it before, I think that'll serve them in good stead. But as I said, the likes of Italy and even maybe an even more dark horse, like you said, in the likes of Wales or Denmark potentially, going even further. Can't see them winning it, but certainly getting far and above people's expectations.
Yeah, France were my pre-tournament pick as well, so I've kind of got to stick with them now. That just through sheer kind of willingness until they end up going out or winning the thing. But I mean, looking through it, all the big boys get through, didn't they? There wasn't really a shock exit in the group stage.
Scotland.
It's the nature of the new format. Like, it's designed to let them all through with those third best place playoffs.
And we still didn't get through.
The one that threatened it was Germany, by the way Hungary were playing against them.
That was mad.
Aye.
Every team in every position at some point, I think. Well, not quite, but I think Portugal were fourth all the way through to first at some point during that final game.
Yeah, that's right.
England were playing every team at some point during that final game, so it just went all the way. I think the problem you've got is that top half of the draw. So let's say Belgium, Portugal, Italy, Austria, France, Switzerland, Croatia, Spain. Let's say in the semi-finals you get Belgium, Italy, France, Spain. That's a tough 4 teams. You know, Spain could pick it up at any moment. And then France, Italy, and Belgium have looked good. And only one of those 4 is going to get to the final. And then you're looking at the other half and you're thinking, a couple of games ago, I wouldn't have said any of these teams are going to get to the final. You know, Netherlands struggled against Ukraine. England haven't conceded, but they haven't scored much either. Germany have been up and down. You know, they needed 2 own goals against Portugal, and that's really the only game where they've really looked good. Against Hungary, a 2-2. That's not great against Hungary, is it? Yeah. So Sweden just held the fort against Spain, even if they had a couple of breakaway chances. 15% possession. So you're looking at these teams in the bottom half. So Sweden, Ukraine, England, Germany, Netherlands, Czech, Wales, and Denmark. One of those teams is going to reach the final, and that could be key. I think Portugal had a route like this last time. Portugal didn't win a group stage game last time.
No, they get 3 draws, didn't they? Yeah.
3 draws. They went through as third best third or something, or 4th best third team. So they just creeped into so they didn't have a good group stage. They drew 3-3 with Hungary last time, and then they go on and win the thing. So like Ben was saying, you can very easily start not. Or I think Ward is also saying in the chat, you can have a average group stage, and then go on and turn it up in the knockout phases, and you just got to pit together a couple of one-off results, and that's cup football for you. I mean, looking at England and Germany, they've got to be happy with, in the end, where they've ended up. Other than you're facing each other, I'd imagine that's a favourable route to the final.
Well, after all the chat about, you don't want to win this group, you really don't
That
want
was
to.
me. That was me saying it.
It wasn't just you; it was the whole internet that was saying it.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if England had came second and ended up on that side of the draw. What the media
Because Spain.
reaction would have been like.
Spain and then France. That's what it would have been.
Yeah, madness.
Germany, but yeah, I was when it was looking like Hungary. That was looking pretty nice, but no.
But with you've kind of led us on there, Si, because teams that haven't done that well in the group stage, I'd maybe throw France in there as well. They didn't look as if they were firing in all cylinders, especially after the first game with Germany. It was Spain until that. No, Slovakia basically gifted them the win, didn't they? With one of the most comical own goals I've ever seen, a slam dunk from the keeper.
Yeah.
England and Germany are in that boat as well, so there's quite a few who you'd fancy as being big boys in there that are still waiting to really get going here, I think. And out of those, obviously, we know the quality they've all got, but I think England-Germany's maybe the most interesting game. Maybe not for entertainment purposes, but it's two sides that haven't really set the world alight yet. And I know Germany had that one game against Portugal where they looked good to get a helping hand. I genuinely don't know which way that game's going to go. Like, I think if England concede first, they might be in trouble.
I mean, it's one of those, like, because of, as we've said, where England now are in the round of 16 and the path to the final, essentially. They'll be looking at it and surely wanting to grab this one and get past it, because it is one of the biggest tests before actually getting to the final. Obviously, you can't underestimate any team really, because they are all going to be wanting the same thing and getting to the last stages of the tournament. But
yeah,
England consider themselves as being one of the bigger teams in the tournament. I don't know if it's wanted at the moment because they haven't been playing that great and they've not really had a hell of a lot of success in a long time. But they always come into the tournaments and believe that they can go on and win it, especially from a fan's perspective. Obviously, we seen them up close when we played them at Wembley, and they just didn't look that great at all. And their other wins have been only 1-0s and just kind of skating by and playing okay. You mentioned France there as well, having not really played that well in the groups, and I can kind of agree with that, just because it's like you expect so much for a team like France because of the notable quality they've got in their squad, and as I've mentioned before, just the fact they've been there and done it before, you'd expect a high quality performance for them all the time, but they really haven't done a hell of a lot yet. They're still to really get going, I think. That could work both ways. They could either continue that on and just kind of meander through the tournament, maybe get a bit far, but maybe not reach the expectations, or they could suddenly turn up in the blink of an eye and really put 3 or 4 past a team like you'd expect them to. But certainly the side of the tournament that England are on, they'll be looking to go far, and Germany as well. It's probably the best chance for those two teams to really get far in the tournament and maybe win it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Any thoughts, Si?
Yeah, I mean, I hate the fact that it's come around to you. The guys started this, brought it round to England talk. I'm not taking responsibility for it coming around to England talk. If you want to face any Germany side, it's this Germany side. I don't know where their goals are going to come from. Having said that, I mean, what did they get? 6 goals in the group stages, and England got 2, so maybe not one to talk. But 2 of those are own goals, and then against Hungary, I mean, it was a scrappy game. So, and Germany have been talking about how they like playing at Wembley, but I don't know how many times they've played. They might want to check their record at the new Wembley rather than the old Wembley, because their record at the new Wembley is not so nice. I think it started off with a big win for England in a famous game that gets replayed. It'll probably be replayed loads on Tuesday, with Michael Owen scoring however many he scored.
They seem to be replaying the game they lost 4-1 all the time.
Oh,
this
the one
week,
in.
and I don't get it. I don't like the Lampard disallowed goal.
Oh yeah, that one, the 2010 World Cup. Yeah,
But it's like, why glorify and replay a game that you got beat in, and not just beat heavily? Why not play a game that you won? The other
That
one
was
I
a
keep
really
saying
weird
is
game.
like they've recreated the Euro '96 game if Gaza had scored, and it's like you still lost that game. I don't get it.
The 2010 game's strange though, because the disallowed goal really was a turning point in the match. Germany had up to that point 2 breakaway goals, and that, I mean, this is what could happen at the was it Tuesday, and then the disallowed goal really took out, and then Germany scored another one quick on the break, and it went from being 2-2, which should have been 2-2 to 3-1, and that changes everything. But I don't think Germany haven't looked great since it was 2016, 2014, 2014. Lowe is hanging on to his job, just about getting through in the 89th minute, last game. So it's not going to be. Let's change it from England, otherwise everyone will get annoyed in chat.
But in terms of Germany, we know Joachim Löw's leaving at the end of this tournament, so he's on a basically run to nothing. This is his final hurrah. He's going to be armpit sniffing his way as far as it can go, but he's but he's kind of baffled me at points in this tournament as well. He doesn't really seem to know what his best setup is and his best 11 is. Like he's clearly got wing back sorted because Gosens has been phenomenal, or Gosens I should say, and Kimmich has done well at right wing back, but I still think up front Germany are a bit light. They're relying on Kai Havertz to score their goals just now, and he's not a striker. He's an attacking mid or a shadow kind of guy. He's not a goal scorer, and they've got Gnabry or Werner as their quote-unquote goal scorers. I don't really think that they're that way inclined as players. Like, they're more kind of second strikers, I would suggest. But if they can get goals into that team, I think they could go far, to be fair.
Yeah. They've got one of the strongest squads, so you'd have to say they could go far. It's just about turning up and actually doing the job, and those players you've mentioned. I didn't even know that Gosens existed before this tournament, I have to admit. He's just been one of those players that's turned up at a tournament and done really well. And it's, as you said, Kimmich and that, and Muller's there as well. There's a lot of players that Germany could call to in their time of need, but I hope they've got enough to get past England, because you don't want to see it as a Scottish person, England getting too far. But I want Germany to win, and I'll go as far as to say I think they'll win as well. It'll be a tight game, I think. There'll be much in it, but I think Germany will squeeze that one.
But we'll move away just before Sai has a coronary about the England game. But Gosens is another one that qualifies for. Oh, where's he from? Oh, he plays in Serie A. Oh, Atalanta. Like almost every player that I've not really known has been an Atalanta player.
They have a lot of good players. They've had a little. There's when the two Milans have not done well in Serie A for the last couple of seasons. Sassuolo and Atalanta have really come on and filled the void. Where you would have thought it might have been Lazio or Roma or a Napoli that fill that gap with Juventus. Juventus have been winning season after season after season up until this year, and they've got a good youth setup. There's a couple of so they've got some Dutch players, they've got some really good young Italian players, they've got some decent players from other countries, and that's it's been kind of unusual in Italy how well Atalanta and Sassuolo have broken into that top 6, a bit like some teams have done elsewhere. This season with in France, PSG's reign has finally been broken. A couple of years ago, Leicester, as Graham has said in the chat, in the Premier League. So it's whether they can keep it up though, because they've only got small stadiums, they've only got smaller fan bases, they haven't got the multimedia empire that some of these big Italian clubs have that allows them to sign those big players. So you've really got to have a really good scouting network for that kind of thing to work.
They're quite an exciting team to watch as well from the games I've seen, which you don't automatically associate with Italian football, but they
I think Ukraine have certainly got a couple of players that I've heard of, like say Yarmolenko and stuff, but I think they were helped by being in the same group as North Macedonia, so that kind of helped them as well, pick up a couple of points here and there. I think it's a very 50-50 tie, and you could call it either way, and you wouldn't be too harsh on either team saying one's going to lose or one's going to win. One of these teams could go into the next round very easily, or it could be a tie that goes all the way to penalties. It's just one of those.
Here's a start for you just before we get to Sally. I saw this morning. Ukraine have the least number of players in the top 5 leagues in Europe. Have any team left in this? So
Most
it's
of them play in
basically
Ukraine, right?
yes. You basically just get Yarmolenko, and a couple others. You've got Man City, Zinchenko. Almost forgot Zinchenko there, but I think it's only 3 in total. But they've still looked very, very decent when they've been on form, especially when they came back into the Dutch game, the Netherlands game. The issue that Ukraine have is they're not the most experienced. They've got an 18-year-old at centre back who, despite looking good, has had 1 or 2 wee wobbles as well, and they just haven't put a full team performance together yet. So it's kind of hard to back them, but I'm just doing what I do and picking an outsider that hopefully I can get behind here.
Is Zinchenko their captain? I mean, that's so weird.
Yes,
He seems to play sort of quite high up the pitch. And if you see him for Man City, he's like a weak spot in the Man City team. And I know they've had issues with that left back position, trying out Mendy, Zinchenko. They had someone else the other season. I can't remember who it was. It was a player who ended up leaving. So they've tried out different players in the left back, and you see, but he seems to fit quite nicely into the Ukraine team. He's still quite a young guy. Kevin De Bruyne lookalike Zinchenko, and
he's the pound shop David Alaba, because he does exactly what David Alaba does. He just plays every position for Ukraine, and they just try to make most use of him because he's one of their better players, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if that's one of your better players, that's a real problem, though, isn't it? Surely, like that's the weak spot in City's team. Everyone's always like, "Oh no, Zinchenko's starting," and you're looking at Ukraine and like, "Yes, Zinchenko, he's going to lead us through." Maybe they don't think that. I don't know what they think, but they're looking to Zinchenko to take them through. Sweden's a fortunate tie, I think, but Sweden have looked strong. I think if Isaac does well, Forsberg, some of the other Swedish players have looked strong, even if against Spain they sort of absorbed a lot of pressure and a passing game. I think Sweden could. Do you think Sweden's group was favourable? Was there a poor Poland and a Slovakia that maybe looked better against Poland and Sweden than they actually were?
I actually think Poland were really poor, in all honesty. Just, they never seem to turn up for major tournaments, do they? They just, other than Lewandowski, I don't know how much we can put into Sweden being kind of group winners there, because it was group winners in the end, wasn't it?
Yes.
They didn't really play against Spain. They just set their stall out and did what they needed to get a draw as well. So it's kind of hard to judge. But what I would say about Sweden is they've got a better attack than many sides in this tournament that are left. You can't overlook them because Forsberg has looked great. He can obviously score from anywhere outside the box as well as in. Isak, we know how deadly he can be in the break pace wise. I'd rather have Sweden's attack than Spain's. So I'll put that out there.
I mean, Spain have been really disappointing for me. Just even in the last couple of tournaments, they've really not done much at all. And obviously, you think of the great Spanish sides and the amount of quality that they used to have, and it's really dropped in the last few years. But they've somehow gotten themselves through in a low quality group, I'd say.
Yeah.
And they've been not too great themselves, so I think they can count themselves pretty fortunate that they're through. I think even though they've dominated games, they never look that great, and the likes of even Morata up front, I'm never too convinced by him either. So I don't know how far they'll eventually get in this tournament. They could go out in this round, to be fair, if they keep continuing to play how they were playing in the groups, because I just wasn't impressed.
I'm happy you brought up Morata because I was going to get onto that. Obviously, I don't have any love for him as a football player. I just don't think he's very good. Full stop. For the amount of money that's been spent on that man, he's a bit of a fraud as a striker. But he was interviewed this week and he was saying, like, apparently there's been all sorts of kind of nonsense and death threats and everything, up to, like, his family have been getting harassed and stuff as well. So you've got to think that's going to affect, well, maybe not even just him, maybe the whole Spanish team as well, because he's clearly well liked in that Spanish squad. Like, you can tell that they're willing him on, but yeah, there's a point where obviously we know what social media is like and stuff with footballers and that, but it sounds like he's been getting a big tight for the Spanish fans as well.
I mean, they can be very harsh at times. I've seen some of the like when Gareth Bale was obviously in Madrid and stuff, and he wasn't taking it very seriously over there. Real Madrid fans were quick to let him know what they thought of him and stuff. So, I mean, sometimes they can be very harsh on their players that play in the country, of course. I'm just looking at Spain's squad, and I'm actually quite surprised at the notable names that are in there. You tend to forget that the squad is actually very decent, but we're just not. Yeah. They're not all clicking as a one unit. They've got really notable names in there. You talk about the likes of like Sweden and Ukraine, and not really having too many big names in there and stuff like that. But the Spanish squad's full of them, but they just don't seem to be clicking as one unit.
Yeah, they've not really found their way of playing, I don't think. What do you reckon, Si?
The thing with Spain, you look at Fernando Torres when they had that run of 3 consecutive tournaments. Some points in Fernando Torres' career right there, he was looking terrible. I think Chelsea shipped him off after an unsuccessful spell. I mean, is Chelsea Is Chelsea the problem here? Because we're looking at Timo Werner, we're looking at Morata, we're looking at Fernando Torres, Lukaku at Chelsea. We can carry on. Havertz at Chelsea right now.
As long as it doesn't touch Billy Gilmore, it's all right.
So, I mean, yeah, Billy Gilmore was out for your last game. Maybe it's a curse or something. So yeah, there's no Fernando Torres, there's no Raul, but Morata could show up. Like in my FM playoffs, it took him 3 games to show up. But he has scored already this tournament. He has got a goal. It's not like he hasn't scored. And then they got that 5-0. He doesn't have to score in a 5-0 win, does he? So they're through. He can score goals. He hasn't scored loads of goals for Juventus this year, but he hasn't been. He's done enough that they want to keep him on. But the thing is, at Juventus, he's playing alongside a Ronaldo and a couple other very good players, Kulusevski. So what does he do when he's got Gerard Moreno next to him rather than Ronaldo? Is that an issue? Is that going to make it more challenging for that Spain squad? The goal's got to come for someone like Ferran Torres, who's been in and out of City's squad this season. It's going to be tricky for Spain without that talisman striker. Morata's really got to step up there.
That's a point Graham's mentioned there. Busquets, who's only just came back into the squad after his COVID break. I say break as if he had a holiday. His COVID isolation. But he's massive in that Spanish team because you could tell in that Sweden game they didn't really have anyone taking the game by the scruff of the neck in that midfield. Like, they brought on Thiago, who obviously is known as a guy who can unlock a defence, and like they've got plenty of guys in there who have got that kind of skill set that can play a through ball, can play a killer pass. They just never looked like they were doing anything though. And I think Busquets gives them something a bit different. He gives them a bit of impetus. Even though he's not the man that's driving forward, he'll sit, but he allows other people to go and be a wee bit more creative and a bit more ambitious. So I think that's a good shout. The only other thing that I have noticed there is Croatia seem to be getting a wee bit of support as well. People think that they could do a wee number on Spain here. They were very good against Scotland.
It was quite a surprise to be fair that Croatia turned up as well as they did against us, because I think the kind of narrative was that they were one of the aging sides in the tournament and maybe were just going to fall short this time, and then obviously the Asian players would eke out for the next tournament. But obviously Modric turned up. I think even before the game, I think Gordon Strachan on the telly said something like, can you either choose to mark Modric, or you can choose to just kind of leave him roaming and hope that you can deal with it in other ways. But we certainly didn't deal with that side of things.
That's why Gordon Strachan's not a manager anymore, that he'd leave Modric roaming.
He completely ran the show. And then obviously got his goal, which is just fantastic, outside of the foot, right in the top corner. You can't deny quality like that, and certainly it is one of the sides in the tournament that could potentially go far without you really noticing that they're still there, if you know what I mean. Like, you're looking at the main teams in the tournament to definitely go far, but the likes of Croatia, and as I've mentioned, coming up today, the likes of Denmark, Wales and stuff, one of them is going to go relatively far in the tournament without being a standout favourite. So, I mean, Croatia showed their qualities in the game against Scotland, albeit we weren't great. But you can't really look past them if they've got that quality in their squad, like Modric.
Like Malden mentioned there, the average age is 27, so the old age and squad narrative isn't exactly bang on.
It's because some of the older guys have gone.
Yeah,
like Rakitic has gone, for example. Rakitic is 32, 33. You know, Rakitic, this is the difference that they had at the World Cup. I haven't been impressed by that Croatia side. They didn't really, I didn't even know if they had a shot against England. And, you know, Rakitic alongside Modric would have allowed them to, you'd have had to have marked both of them. Whereas all you have to do now is, you know, sort of look at Modric, and they've still got good players alongside him, but they're no Champions League winning superstars. I don't know if Rakitic won the Champions League, but he must have come
it's certainly there anyway, right in the final stages. I mean, I think the reason that Croatia's been so overlooked is because of that England game. But the way England play really doesn't suit Croatia to play against. They need teams to usually come at them a wee bit to give them a bit of space, so Modric can then just pick the passes through. And England were relatively deep, I felt like, against Croatia. They got their goal and that was it. They were just quite happy to see the game out and keep the spaces tight. They had two defensive mids just holding fort as well. And they played Croatia the way you should play them when they got ahead. But the problem for Scotland, I felt like, was unlike England, who were pressing. And I think there's a lack of pace in that Croatia team, maybe not age-wise, but they're not the quickest. You're relying on Perisic as your speed man. He's no kind of blinding speed. I feel like if you press them, you can get the better of them. I don't see that being Spain's game right enough. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, because they might well have a shot there and knocking Spain out, just the way the two sides match up with each other. Because we just mentioned Busquets, he's going to be the only certain midfielder. If you get Modric on him and he gets a wee bit of daylight here and there, you never know. They're going to create a chance or two.
Yeah. And it does depend on that thing that I said. It depends what Spain's kind of tactical decision is on Modric. Do they man mark him, or do they just leave him to roam? Because, as I mentioned, you can see what happens when you leave him to just roam and do his thing. He can just dictate a game quite easily. So if Spain choose to, have their possession football like they always do, and then try and mark them at the game, they might get more joy out of that.
I mean, I will say for Spain, I don't think they'll leave them unmarked at the edge of the 18-yard box ready to put the ball in the back of the net. That's one thing that they'll probably avoid that we unfortunately did.
Mal's brought up Kovacic, but that's the difference, isn't it? A Rakitic or a Modric will do what Modric did against Scotland. I think he's done it again in numerous international tournaments over the years. You just don't leave a player like that with space on the edge of the box, and you don't leave him with space in a position to provide good balls through to good strikers. And if Spain can deal with that, Busquets could be the player that they need. Spain need back in to deal with Modric. He's going to know him very well from playing against him over the years. So that could be the matchup that we need.
So now there's only a couple of countries we've not touched on. The Czech Republic, or Czechia, as it should be referred to, are one of them. Going up against a team that Ben's mentioned a couple of times now, the Netherlands. I can't see them doing anything there. I don't know about you guys. I mean, it's not a home crowd, which might be it might affect the Netherlands a wee bit. They're used to playing in Amsterdam. This game's in Bucharest, if I remember rightly. But I know they've got Patrick Schick up front, a quality striker, but I don't know. I just think Netherlands have shown enough that they should be able to dispatch with them easier. Not easily, but there shouldn't be too many problems for them if they turn up.
I mean, it is one of these ones that you're probably looking at Netherlands being the stronger team, certainly on paper. I mean, the notable one for Czech Republic, as you mentioned, has been Patrick Schick and just getting the goals. And I mean, aside from that, I can't really see much coming for the Czech Republic. Czechia, as you said. I've never actually heard of that one, to be fair. I've always called them Czech Republic. So, I mean, Czech Republic could come in and surprise a couple of people. Just we're getting a wee kind of odd result here and there, but in a one-off tie, when you know that you're going to get through to a later round of competition, I just can't see past Netherlands with the likes of Depay in their team and Gini Wijnaldum coming in and making those late darting runs like he did in one of the group games. So there's too much quality in that Netherlands squad for me to make any other prediction than them getting through in that game. I think Czech Republic were decent enough in the group stage, but were lucky in some ways as well that they came up against Scotland and we didn't really turn up in the game enough to get away chances that we should have. And if they hadn't got the 3 points in that game, they might have ended up with just a couple of draws in the tournament and out they would have gone. I think they got a wee bit lucky with just how lacking in clinical finishing we were on the day. Because we had a lot of chances in that game and we just failed to put them away. So obviously Schick's goals have been the key for them getting through, and it's kind of up to him really now to continue that form if they can go any further in the tournament. So I think that's been their main source of success so far.
I mean, that's the thing, they've got a top-class striker, and that's why they won that game.
Yeah.
Because they've got somebody of that quality and they've got Souček supporting, you can't automatically discount them, so.
No, Kufal is also very good. Souček's Schick, but I think if you look further down their team list, it starts to get a little bit shaky. They're taking Matty Vidra, who I don't know if Matty Vidra has played a Premier League game even for. Is he still at Burnley? I guess he is, right? They got Klozek, the famous FM wonder kid, Klozek, who is probably going to end up nowhere in 10 years. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Netherlands have got to. If Netherlands haven't been not scoring goals, but they haven't been through the way you would expect. You would have expected breakaways with Memphis Depay running onto the ball and scoring one-on-ones. The way that Memphis Depay shifted his game from what he was doing what he wasn't been doing at Man United, and then went off to France to do. So I wonder if the Netherlands they've got a few things that they can turn to in terms of strategies to try and beat the Czech Republic. I think that you can't look past the Netherlands here. That's got to be the second easiest game to call, maybe. I don't know, other than the Italy game.
Oh, that's a bold call. I'll go with that. Because I would say the one we're about to talk about is the second easiest one. France, Switzerland. We've not touched on the Swiss yet. The only doubt I've got about the Swiss is they turned it on, albeit against Turkey, in their last game. Is it more that Turkey were that bad, or have the Swiss finally got Shaqiri, and even Haris Seferovic scored a great goal? I don't know what planet football was on that day, because that morning John Walker was on and absolutely savaged the guy, saying that he was a terrible striker, and instantly went and scored for 25 yards. So there's that. But John's on tomorrow, by the way. I'll be abusing him for it. But I can't see them troubling France. I just can't see any world in which the Swiss knock France out.
It would have to be a Hungary versus Germany type scenario.
Yeah.
France could have a terrible game and just not really turn up at all. Maybe can eventually squeeze something out of it, but France would really need to be playing at a low level for Switzerland to get through. Because I just coming into the tournament, France know they're one of the favourites. And that could be the added pressure that kind of makes them nervy in these type of games. It can work either way. They can come in and dominate every game, but they've not really been doing that so far. So it's about coming into one of these games when this is, as we said, one of the easier ties in the knockout rounds, and can they just come in now and prove why they are favourites, or will they still be kind of a wee bit shaky and not really at their best? They'll have to be at some point in the tournament because, as we've said, there is better teams to come in the tournament. But this tie does look very favourable for them.
I'm going to argue that's the worst prediction I've seen so far in this whole tournament, Cam. One notice Switzerland with a Xhaka solo hit for. Yeah, Granit Xhaka is what he is. I suppose he does a job for Switzerland, but this is exactly the kind of game that they'll lose 2-0 and he'll get sent off in, is the way I see it going.
They'll win 2-0. Xhaka and Shaqiri. Shaqiri just bullies his way to a goal. It happened once before with Switzerland. Switzerland have a habit of sometimes just turning up in random tournament games. They beat Spain. They beat Spain the opening game of the the opening group game of the 2012 Euros. Mm-hmm. Like, Spain were the heavy favourites going into that, and Switzerland turned up and beat them, and Spain ended up winning. But I don't think you can overlook Switzerland. I think there's some good players in there.
Definitely, yeah.
I heard someone saying that they had one of the worst teams ever seen, but I'm not sure I agree with that. This Switzerland team doesn't look too bad. I think if they're in the right frame of mind, is this a derby game? This is a derby game, right?
It counts as a derby game, I would say. Yeah.
Does it count more as a derby game for Switzerland than it does for France? That's
it's a Scotland England situation again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Does this matter more to the Swiss? And if it does, that could really get them going into this game. And sometimes France have a habit of, when things aren't going their way, they can really start to get at each other. We've already seen Giroud and Mbappe getting at each other. Pogba over the years he's pretty professional, but once or twice he's obviously fallen out with various people on the pitch. So if Switzerland really go at France here and frustrate France, it'd be interesting to see how, and that'll be the measure of how good France are in this tournament, and whether they should still be the faves or whether we should be looking at maybe Italy after today.
Yeah, France do have a capacity for self-destruction in there, definitely. I also think actually they'd be better playing Giroud up front than Benzema, because the thing with the last tournament winning side was Giroud made Griezmann better, he made Mbappe better, because he was the focal point, the target man that was playing set up, and Giroud's brilliant at that. He's very unselfish for the type of player he is. Benzema's quite selfish, being a goal scorer, and he's not been on firing all cylinders so far. He's got a couple of penalties to his name, and that's it. Like, some of the chances he missed against Hungary were unforgivable as well. So I don't know, there's still some waiting to click in that France team, but if they do get clicking, I think it's a case of look out, and it's France or Italy the whole way for me if they can get moving. I still can't see a way. They're definitely not the worst team I've ever seen, to quote John Walker, for Switzerland, but I just can't see a way they do the business here. What do you think, Ben?
As I said, I'm still going to obviously back France. They pretty much go all the way anyway.
Yeah.
So they have to get through in this one. The thing you're touching on there with Giroud and Benzema, Giroud's kind of come under this at Chelsea as well, where he was kind of overlooked a bit in terms of what he could bring to the team. And I think he was on the bench quite a lot at the start of the season anyway, and then kind of came back into it because they just knew that he could do a better job for the team and bringing more players into the game, and essentially, as you said, creating chances for the better players in terms of just holding it up, bringing them into play and stuff. But it's one of those ones where you can see both sides of the coin, really, because Benzema is a top class striker, there's no doubt in that. He's played very well for Real Madrid in the last season, scoring at Champions League level and stuff, so you can see why he's picked. But certainly there is a big case for Giroud, just because he does bring that different element to the team that the likes of Benzema just doesn't, because they're just different types of strikers. Yeah,
definitely. Well, we've only got 5 minutes left, so what I'm going to do is just touch on fantasy football for the Euros as well, because some people have been asking us to talk about, and sorry it's taking to the last 5 minutes, folks, to get here, but if you haven't sorted your team, do it before 5 o'clock, because you've got infinite transfers. You can totally change your squad in this round. And I need to remind myself to do it as well, so it's more a self note than anything else there. Is there any particular picks? I know you're big in your fantasy, Sally. Any must picks in this round for you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Italy players, Immobile. I've had him all the way through. I captained him the first week. Mbappe maybe against Switzerland. Just thinking, if you want some budget options, perhaps. Okay, one thing you got to remember with this one is you can active sub players, so you can play players who you wouldn't have started normally, and then sub them out later. As long as you've got an 11 or a 15 that you think they're all going to start the game, that's the trick, right? You got to make sure. So I've got Bachmann in goal right now against Italy. I don't think Bachmann's going to get many points against Italy, but you never know. This is the problem I had in the first game with Predecki. But my plan is to swap him out for Stekelenburg, who's a cheap pick for the Netherlands keeper. When Bachmann inevitably gets 1 point or something, he's conceded 3 goals. So
can you sub players after they've played in that case?
Yeah, you can sub them in and out. You can do active subs rather than. But if you do it and then someone doesn't play, you can't sub. It doesn't auto sub them up. So you've got a risk reward.
So does it automatically sub in and out once guys have played for higher points, or do you need to do that?
No, you need to do it. No, so if they've already played, you can't sub them in. You can only sub players out. So the way to set up your team is to have the players playing today and tomorrow on the pitch, and then the ones playing in the last games off the pitch, and then you take off the ones who haven't done so well. For me, it hasn't worked out so far. I've been taking off players with 1 point, and then I've brought on someone who's got 0 points. But I'm willing to risk 1 point for the fact that someone who got 0 might also got a 10. And it's I think it's been Mbappe who's been letting me down. Actually, I think has he got a goal yet? He got a goal the week I didn't have him. I've had him in 3 games. He hasn't got a goal. He hasn't scored.
Oh, is he not?
So he's earned a penalty, and then he's done nothing for the other 2 games.
He got 2 points for the penalty. That was what it was.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks. There's a tip I didn't know. So I've learned something new this morning. Ben, how's your fantasy going? How you feeling?
Well, just wanted to tell you that I've not touched fantasy.
Oh, disgraceful behaviour.
I was trying to think of a player that I'd potentially put in for this round of games, and I'd probably go for Netherlands player Gini Wijnaldum. I think
that's a good shout.
He's just one of those players that I think he's one of the mainstays in that Netherlands team, and aside from the likes of Depay, he gets a decent enough amount of goals for the Netherlands, and he's always making those late darting runs, and I think he could potentially get a good run out against Czech Republic. So I'd go for him.
Just trying to think of somebody outside the box here. I think Gini Wijnaldum would make sense because he's exactly the kind of guy who's going to get assists and goals against the Czechs. I'm looking at that Sweden game. I'm thinking Forsberg, maybe. Because Forsberg's been pretty good so far, and Ukraine's defence isn't the strongest. I'd fancy him to get at least 1 goal there, so maybe for a cheaper option.
Yeah, I've gone Kulusevski, but I don't even know if he started. He didn't start the first 2 games. He didn't play the first 2 games. So
yeah.
But that could be. I don't know if Sweden maybe sat back in those first 2 games and they're going to bring in someone more attacking. I need to look at him before I go in. before I go on before I think it's 5 p.m. the deadline, right? Yeah, 5 p.m. You got right up into the deadline.
Yeah.
You can wait for the team announcements in this one, which you can't normally do in a lot of fans.
Ashley, I'll show your names there. Spinazzola's a good one, actually.
I got Spinazzola.
Dumfries as well.
Good.
Like defenders that have got a chance of grabbing assists and so on.
Mounier for Belgium, although he's got a tricky game against Portugal.
I love the way you've named all the names and gone big, baldy Swedish centre back. Now, who is that? Let me see if I can figure a name out for you. Big, baldy Swedish centre back might be Danielson, possibly. I think Danielson's the only one that's properly bald.
I think she's just like that based on she knows there's going to be at least one.
Just if there's one, just put him in the squad. Poulsen of Denmark's not a bad shout for Gashead as well. He's not really a goal scorer though, is what I'd say. He's a physical specimen that he's what Ollie Burke should be, essentially. If Ollie Burke knew what football
How have we brought Ollie Burke into this?
How have I managed to get Ollie Burke into a Euros chat? Right, we'll move on swiftly.
It is worth looking at what you get points for. because you do get points for things like winning penalties, which you wouldn't normally do. So that's something to bear in mind. And there are a couple other things that you get points for that you wouldn't normally in fantasy. So that can bring in some players that wouldn't normally be. You wouldn't take them in a fantasy Premier League or fantasy Scottish Premier.
If you think Grealish is going to start for England and win a penalty, might be worth a look as well. There's your final thought for the day. But thank you very much, folks, for watching. Again, Si, Ben, thank you very much for coming on. Early doors.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Si especially helping us out when Andy couldn't make it in the end. So hopefully Andy's feeling better. But we'll be back tomorrow morning. Again, as I say, John Walker's on, so he'll be ready to take your abuse about what he said about all those countries that ended up going through. And I've got Ben Grant with him as well. So until tomorrow morning, I am going to try and do a FM streaming a wee bit. I can't just now with the internet. We'll see if it gets better or not. Check the Twitter. But otherwise, catch you later on.